It's part of it. I mean, the best players in the game have all been traded. I mean, some of the few lucky ones have been blessed to be drafted in situations where they can win championships and it all be perfect for them. They can stay in that one situation forever, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I want to do with Atlanta. But who knows? It's a type of league where things change and that happens. But obviously, my mindset is staying in Atlanta right now, and I don't get caught up in all the rumors and stuff. My contract is locked in for a couple of years, so I don't have very much say in it right now.
That was Trae Young. After all the All-Star festivities, after the All-Star game, talking about his future in Atlanta, giving just some thoughts on, the trade rumors that are going on right now. And that was a great question from Jamila JNBA on Twitter. She's done great work. Go over to her YouTube page, ATL Hawks fan. Subscribe to her. She's a credentialed Atlanta Hawks media member, and she does really good work for, the Hawks community and just all the work she puts in. Really appreciate it. To ask a question that no one else was asking him during this entire weekend, she had the gall to ask him that question. So really appreciate her asking that. But that's what we're going to start with today, guys. Welcome back to Bleav in Hawks podcast. It's been a couple of days. Obviously, All-Star break happening. Wanted to talk about that comment, talk about Trae Young's All-Star weekend, and then talk about some changes I want to see the team make when we get back to playing on Friday. So, listen. Continuing off the last episode, talk about Trae Young's future. Obviously, those comments, I think, from what I've seen on social, they have created, I don't want to say a stir, but people are looking into it deeply. Oh, he said right now and da. He's not saying things that maybe mean like, oh yeah, I am committed to Atlanta forever, et cetera, because he brought up sometimes, you can't stay with a team your whole career because of unseen circumstances and things like that. And so some people were wondering, was Trae hinting at something? But he did say his mind currently is on Atlanta. He said, I have a couple years left on my contract. So one thing about Trae Young that I feel like just the vibe he gives me, he doesn't seem like the type who's going to sit here and demand a trade, demand out. He seems like he will finish out his contract here, and then he will reassess the situation in Atlanta and decide what he wants to do. But he would prefer, and I truly believe him when he said that, I do think he truly prefers to stay in Atlanta if he could stay in Atlanta. I don't think he's in this mission and mode of like, I gotta get out of here. People were talking about during the All-Star weekend him with Victor. If they say he was flirting with Victor, talking to all these guys. And we know the NBA All-Star break, you never know what type of tampering is going on, what players are saying to each other. And, a lot of questions come from that. But I think pretty much, Atlanta for him is a place I think he wants to win at. I've said this multiple times. I said this last episode. I said that he wants to win in Atlanta. But I think he also is aware of what the front office has done. Brad Rowland spoke about on his podcast, basically saying he's not seething. Atlanta does not want to trade him, but at the same time, Trae and obviously the fans know that the front office has been a little cheap. The front office hasn't paid money. The team has gotten worse because of that. So it's one of those things where I can't remember who said this exactly on Twitter, but he basically said Trae's comments was basically, I want to be in Atlanta, but we got to start spending some money and stop being cheap. I just paraphrased what that tweet was said. And I agree with that. I agree with that cold-heartedly. I think this offseason is huge because, again, assuming that this team makes the play-in, potentially doesn't make the playoffs, or if they make the playoffs, get eliminated in the first round, got to make a change because you're the exact same place you ended last year. You can't use the excuse of patience and waiting around anymore because it's like, okay, you can't tell the fan base we're just going to stay put again. Like, you have to make moves. Like I've said, I expect them to revisit DeJounte Murray and that trade potential. We'll see if they do anything with Bogey, potentially any other guys, potentially in trade talks. Bay has a big contract decision they have to make if they're going to keep him. Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made this offseason. And so the Hawks have to, really, the front office actually has to really give us those answers. And also don't forget, you still have to answer the question with the rookies. Like, you can't You would expect Kobe to come into the rotation next year. You would expect maybe Seth Lundy to potentially get into the rotation next year. The only player rookie who may not is Muhammad Gay, and that's just because he hasn't played at all this year. So he hasn't gone through that development like they have in playing in the Skyhawks. But overall, I think for Trae Young, I think right now he's just playing. I think he believes in Quinn. He's been vocal about Quinn multiple times. He really wants to play with Jalen Johnson. I think he thinks him and Jalen could be the next 1-2 combo in this league. I think, he's been outspoken about, hey, we got to get the players in here that work with what Quinn wants to do. I just don't see him saying all that, knowing in the back of his head, I'm out of here. Because it would make no sense in that situation to outwardly defend your head coach, but then no, I want to leave Atlanta. So to me, it makes me, and he's also preached patience. He said, listen, it's going to take time. It's not going to be quick. And a guy saying that to me tells me he's like, listen, are we where I want to be right now with this franchise? No. But I also understand the hurdles and the obstacles in our way and to get to that point. And so I'm not going to be impatient and rush that and say, well, if we don't rush it by this point, I'm out of here. Like I said, he still has a few years left on his contract. Usually when players have years left on their contract, teams have leverage. Now, if Trae Young's getting into that last year before a player option, then, you may be in a situation where it's like, all right, well, you got to do something now. And I hope the front office is not trying to wait that long before making a decision like that. But it's something that is going to be lingering. But I think it's good that Trae basically said his mind's in Atlanta. He's focused on here, wants to win. He wants to be with one franchise. And we'll see how this front office responds as this season, continues, finishes up, and then we'll see what they do in the offseason. But Trae Young was at the Indianapolis All-Star Weekend this past weekend. Participated in the three-point contest, also in the All-Star game as well. I also really, feel like, I know the big story coming out of that was the All-Star game and how bad that was, which I will give my thoughts on too. But three-point contest, Trae Young put on the show. He played well. He was got to the last round and literally was tied until Damian hit that last money ball late to win it. But Trae, he showed up and showed out. He talked about it even afterwards. He's like, listen, wish I could have had a higher score, but I'm glad to see people see what we got going on in the A, and still repping the city and so forth. So I think he had a good showing there. He's a guy who has really, one of the things about Trae Young, if you look at his 3-point stats, it's never really been considered great. But I feel like this year he's had stretches, especially where he's just shot lights out from three, especially from deep three. So for me, coming into this 3-point contest, I'm not surprised he finished where he finished because, especially with Quinn Snyder coming in, I think everybody knew he needed to work on the 3-ball. And I think Quinn has helped Trae, and Trae knows, okay, if I'm going to maximize what he wants me to be, I got to maximize my 3-ball. And that's what you've seen from him this season. And now you just saw it in the 3-point contest during All-Star weekend. And you've seen good performance from him there. And then the All-Star game, again, I think this also happened in his second appearance. Didn't really play a lot. I think he only played a total of 15 minutes. I think he had 5 points, but he did lead the East with assists, 7, I believe. Had that nutmeg on Kevin Durant, obviously a highlight play. He hasn't nutmeg guys in a game in years. He used to do that his first couple of years in the league. He used to do that, I think, more his second year, especially. He used to do that a lot. I remember the infamous, I think he tried to do it to Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza was kind of, gave him a shove. And I really, ever since that, I haven't seen Trae do it a lot. And I could see that also being like, all right, I'm trying to win. I can't be nutmegging everybody, because that's just not maybe serious basketball. But that was the highlight. He had a 3 at the end of the third quarter in the All-Star game as well. And, I don't know what Doc was thinking. It was a game that no defense was played, so I don't know why Trae didn't play more minutes, but that's what they wanted to do. Okay, fine. So overall, I think Trae did a good job representing Atlanta during All-Star weekend, really. I think he did a good job just, getting to his third All-Star appearance, 3-time All-Star. A guy who will probably be our only all-star for a while. I mean, I don't really see anybody else maybe entering that fray unless Jalen Johnson, as he continues to ascend, potentially taking that step. But overall, I think that, he did what he needed to do. I think Trae's been doing what he needed to do out there. And I think overall he had a pretty good weekend, I would say. It was and everything like that. Now, talking about the All-Star game, I know everybody was pissed. I mean, the East scored over 200 points. The game was extremely uncompetitive in terms of just there was not a lot of competitiveness in the game. Defense obviously was an option. I think they set a record for most three-point attempts in the game with like over 120. So clearly you could see between both teams combined. So you could clearly see that this was a game where everybody was just kind of messing around, and Adam Silver coming into that, and even Larry Bird said it too early, I think that day of the All-Star game. It was that, everybody wants to make the All-Star game more competitive again, but nobody knows how. Nobody knows what can we do to make the All-Star game watchable again and exciting. When Kobe passed and they changed the format, those were the times, those couple of years where, oh wow, the All-Star game was competitive. Like guys are playing hard. They're competing, especially in the final frame, and that's what the NBA wanted to try to get back to, the competitiveness of the All-Star game. This past week, I think, was a very frustrating time for basketball fans. I've seen people say that they need to get rid of the dunk contest because the dunk contest is not at all what it used to be. Even the skills challenge is something that I think people are kind of like the skills challenge has always been kind of a so event, but it's always been a nice setter, like a good first thing. It's been like a fun event. But even now, I think people are like, we can get rid of that too. Some people even talking about just get rid of the entire All-Star weekend to begin with. I mean, some people were really frustrated after seeing what happened. And the thing is that, these cities are doing all this to try to make this venue great. Obviously Indy had that court at the airport, and, they want this. They look at this as an opportunity to show all NBA fans that come to the All-Star game what the city's about, the love for basketball that they have, and to go to an All-Star game event, to buy a ticket, to fly to see maybe a player from your favorite team that is in that game, and to watch the game and then see that performance. I can understand you just being like, why do I even spend money on the All-Star game? Why even go through it? People are going to tune in because there's always going to be that question of, will this next year be better? Will this weekend be better than last? And even Adam Silver, after the game the East won, he kind of was just kind of like, congratulations on setting the points record. Almost like, oh boy, this was not what I expected. This is not what I wanted. So a lot of people were, like I said, asking the question of what can the NBA do to make the All-Star game more watchable? Is it, obviously you've heard people bring up the old baseball conditions where when they have their All-Star games, if the East, the AL or the NL won, they would have home field regardless of record in the World Series. Some people have brought that up. Do we do that? But then at the same time, people are also worried, well, that means the number one seed has no meaning anymore to teams because, it doesn't matter if we have the best record. We could be the eighth seed. If we win, if we get through the playoffs and we won in the All-Star game, we're going to have home court regardless. So you do worry about that. Some people said, do you put money on the line? I mean, the in-season tournament, all they did was play for money and a trophy, and that got competitive basketball. So did you put money? I mean, there was a report that apparently said that players want to get paid for the All-Star break, but obviously that's going to get backlash from fans because it's like, well, if it's not going to improve the product, then why are we paying you extra money to do it if you're not going to improve the product that we are seeing on television? So I get that as well, and why, as a fan of the game, you may not want that either. For me, I think you have to give them, there has to be something given to them that players are going to want that may mean something. I mean, I don't know. Shoot, every team, whoever side, I'll just bring something random. Whoever wins, every player that makes the All-Star team for a selected team, that team gets an extra draft pick. Probably not a first, probably a second, but they get an extra draft pick. So if the East won, that means Boston gets a draft pick, Atlanta gets a draft pick this year, and there'll be second round picks. So that's just an extra asset for a team to get. Now that's more team centric, not player centric. So I don't know how much that means to a player, but that's something. I don't know. Maybe the teams can talk to him. If you're talking about something more player centric, I don't know. Maybe you could I mean, somebody threw out an idea once of like maybe you give fans of the teams who side one gives them a free home game. I mean, teams probably don't want to do that to give up that kind of money. I mean, this is the kind of the challenge. I mean, a couple of players were asked, and they were just kind of like, I don't know. Anthony Edwards was asked about it, and he was kind of like, I mean, it's kind of a break and just to have fun. I don't know, why am I going to play hard during my break? So some of the players have kind of already came out and kind of been like, I mean, not really. I don't see any reason to play hard in this game. So it's tough. I mean, maybe you go with the home court. I mean, Adam Silver has to figure it out. Because after a while, it's almost like people are like, I don't have to watch the All-Star game. I could just be on Twitter, see what people are saying. If it seems like it's something good, then maybe I can tune in. But if not, why should I spend my Saturday night where I could maybe go out with friends or something to watch that? So NBA has an issue they need to fix with the All-Star game, for sure. You got to get these guys more locked in and competitive, and you got to figure out a formula that works for them. So it's something that, is going to be tough. Maybe, I don't know. So it's something that they obviously have to go back to the drawing board, talk about, figure out, and see what they want to do moving forward. So the All-Star game and then the dunk contest can be great again too. Got to get, I mean, some people are like, we got to get the professional dunkers from outside the NBA here because this isn't, I mean, no offense to Mac, won it 2 years in a row, but it's like, it just feels like the luster, everything is just not there anymore. And that was something that people just used to be so excited for, which is the dunk contest. And to see what it's transpired into has just been frustrating for people. Because now no good player wants to be a part of the event in terms of like really good. Jaylen Brown did it this year, which was good. And he was in the final. But, I think people just, maybe it's a star power thing. Maybe it's just a star power thing. But also, people are like, are we running out of dunks? No, they're not running out of dunks. I can watch professional dunkers do different crap that they haven't done in the NBA slam dunk contest. So it's something that we have to continue to figure out, man. It's something we have to continue to figure out. NBA has to figure out to make All-Star Weekend just a better quality experience from an on-court perspective. The cities can do all they want and make it the greatest spectacle that they can do, but the NBA now has to make it worth it because now you don't know how cities may feel about the All-Star game because they're like, well, this is the product we're getting. Do we really want it? I mean, you'll probably always do it just because it's a good financial decision for the city, but you never know if a city may just be like, this product isn't great if we're going to be responsible for hosting a bad All-Star weekend, realistically. So we'll have to see. So let's get back into Hawks talk here. I'm going to go into certain changes that I want to see the Hawks make as they come back and finish this season. Some changes that I think could be beneficial for this team moving forward. And, maybe it could lead to more consistent results. So first thing is first, coming back from the All-Star break, if Ayaka Kongu is healthy, he needs to be the starter for the rest of the year. I think, Quinn, you've seen the success you've had with DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench. I think Clint may be good in that role. I think he is going to be good in that role, playing around 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes a night if needed. And kind of playing in spurts for rebounding, defense, those things. And letting Ayeka just grow. Because we've seen the numbers. He works really, really well with Trae because of his ability to shoot. He works really, really well with Jalen. He is an easier guy to do pick and roll with for any player. And I think at the same time, I've said this multiple times on the podcast, you gave him the extension. Let him show you he is worth the extension. Give him the starting job for a top 6 pick and let him show you he can be the guy. Can't completely figure that out if you're playing in the bench. A lot of teams nowadays, like I said, you play Boston, Clint Capella is basically useless against Boston outside of rebounding. You're going to finish games with Onyeka Okongwu. The last couple of games where Clint Capella was hurt before the All-Star break, you started finishing games with Okongwu because he was the better matchup and he was playing well. Let him hold that job. Let him continue to grow, get more comfortable in the starting lineup. Let him continue to play the way he was playing. He was giving you basically a double-double a night. He was giving you, or if he didn't have a strong rebounding night, he maybe was pushing 20 points. I mean, imagine now getting 20 points from your center, not just from putbacks. Like an actual guy who like could hit a three, hit the mid-range, has good touch at the rim, can shoot free throws. That's Onyeka Okongwu. A really good, he's a good on-ball defender. May not be the shot blocker that Clint Capella is, even though Clint Capella has regressed. But he's a better overall defender than Clint. So give Onyeka Okongwu the job and let him be your starting center. Second thing I would change. I would play 4 guards consistently. I talked about this in my last episode. Glenn Willis talked about it on a tweet. He said, I feel like the guards, he basically said Trae, DeJounte, and Bogey get tired because sometimes Quinn will only play those 3 guys the entire game in the guards perspective. And the issue is that you have Kobe Buffkin, who Quinn Snyder has came out and said, played really well. I'm impressed. He's ready, et cetera, and yet didn't play him the last 2 games. You are at a point now where you have had Trae Young has said he's ready. Quinn has said he's ready. If you're Quinn, you have to see that, okay, my guards are running out of gas sometimes at the end of these games. Listen, we get that when Kobe played 16, 17 minutes, there was a bunch of injuries. And you're not going to be able to play him 16, 17 minutes if everybody's healthy. But you can give him something. You can give him 5 to 10 minutes. You can do that. Let him do that. Because at the end of the day, he is your best perimeter defender. He showed well against Jalen Green, but at the same time, I also understand he's a rookie. He will get cooked at times. Listen, there are going to be some savvy veterans who will cook him. And that's just the game, You can be a great defender, but you will get cooked sometimes. And you just got to let him grow through it. Let him develop through it. Let him, okay, next time I defend him, this is what he did to me. This is how I can, defend him better. He does this a lot, so I need to make sure I'm careful with that. Let him do that. But don't just put him on the bench when we're struggling at the point of attack and there's someone on the bench you can do it, because you literally played Trent Force all his games that he could play this year. You let him play in all those games. And yet, Kobe Buffkin is basically a better version, offensively especially, than Trent Forrest. Trent Forrest may be a more stout guy than Kobe because Kobe's still growing into his body. But Kobe has the ability, if he gets the shots and he has the green light within the offense, to score points. Like Trent Forrest, every NBA team knew, he really isn't that much of a threat offensively. Like getting points from Trent Forrest, like any points from him was looked at as a bonus. Kobe legitimately can come into the game, and if he's having a good night, can give you 8 points, 10 points off the bench, which would be big. And then he could still defend. So I personally feel like don't be afraid to give him the ability to let Trae, DeJounte, and Bogey not put so many minutes on them. You're playing a playoff rotation when you don't have to. I get that we're trying to win games, but to me, why do you think Kobe can't help you win those games? And he's eager to help you win those games. So give Kobe Buffkin some run. I also would call up Seth Lundy. And the reason why is because one of the biggest issues that the Hawks made is when they traded John Collins, they didn't get a backup 4. They just said, we're going to make Bey the backup 4. The problem with that is if you're playing a bigger team, Bey's going to struggle. Bey is good against small ball teams at 4, but you need someone else who can play the 4. Now, I know Seth Lundy isn't a 4, And the point I'm making is, if with the injuries that we have had to the wing, especially now that John Collins is gone, and now you only have 3 wings. If DeAndre has to sit a game, if Jalen has to sit a game, if Hudbay has to sit a game, you cannot sit here and tell me that going to Wesley or Garrison Matthews is your best choice. With Seth Lundy, probably can give you exactly what they're giving you, if not potentially more. The thing about young players and why you have so many people who push for them is because the potential that they could give you more than what you're getting. Garrison, you know what you're getting. Wesley, you know what you're getting. Seth, I can't say I know what we're getting with Seth Lundy because I haven't seen him enough to know. All I know is he'll light it up in the G League. So, shoot, why can't he have the opportunity to potentially light it up on the main roster? And really, I want him called up for depth reasons. Just, if you have injuries, go to Seth. He had an opportunity before he got the ankle injury, and then Quinn just never went back to him. And I just think, no, go back to him. Give him an opportunity. Let him play. And then Trae Young can maximize Seth Lundy because of his passing ability. Seth can find where he needs to go, get open shots. Trae will find him, and he'll have good looks and could now be a lethal three-point shooter for you. So don't be afraid to call up those 2 guys and let them, Kobe play especially, just for the guard rotation and rest and fatigue. But Seth for depth at the wing in case someone does get hurt again, in case Hunter has to set out a back-to-back. You have more another capable guy who could have a really good game if given the opportunity. And then there's one lineup, and this is my last thing. There is one lineup that I want Quinn to go back to that he's only used a couple of times this season, but I really think this is one of, if not the best Hawks lineup he can put on the floor. I always remember this, and I've said this multiple times to you guys. The Charlotte game. First game of the season. He used this lineup when the Hawks were down, and they got back into the game. I Bleav they cut it to 2 points when that happened, if not tied it up. He played, I think it was Murray, Bay, Hunter, Jalen, Conley. That lineup gives you versatility 1 through 4. If you have Murray in there, now he's guarding points, which is his preferred guards. And now you have really not a weakness defensive. Like, listen, I think Bay can hold his own against like 2 guards. You put him against bigger guys and more craftier 3s and 4s, he'll struggle a lot because he's not a great on-ball defender to begin with. But him playing 2 or Hunter, whoever you want to put there, is not a bad idea. And this lineup has been used twice, and they've gotten positive results both times because you still have scoring on the floor, whether that's DeJounte or Trae. You have versatility 1, 2 through 5. All of them can switch. Everybody can hit a 3. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's your most balanced lineup to me. You still have offense, and you got better defense. And I really, really hope that Quinn will use it. And I don't even know if he remembers even use it at this point, but I really think that's a rotation that if the Hawks, and I get you don't want to use a rotation all the time, but maybe if you're down or if you need some stops, don't be afraid to use that rotation. And just because I think it really can help you against teams, especially bigger teams. And I think that may be an ideal lineup to use to get defense, but still keep scoring. Because the problem and one of the issues with the roster construction is that Quinn's very limited in defensive lineups that he has. He can put offensive linemen on the floor, of course, but defensive lineups he doesn't really have. That's probably his best defensive lineup he can put on the floor, realistically. With Murray, Hunter, Bay, Jalen, and Okongwu. Or Clint. Clint just can't switch like Okongwu can. So that's why I say balanced. But so hopefully, I don't know if he'll make any of these changes. He may not make any more changes. If y'all guys think there's some other changes he should make, leave them down below in the comments. But that's about all I got for you guys today. This is your Bleav in Hawks episode 43, man. Came a long way so far. as we get ready for the Hawks to get back from the All-Star break this Friday, playing the Toronto Raptors. So I'll be on top of that, giving you the latest on that game. And we'll see if our Hawks can make a push late here to get into the top 2 play-in spots, 8 and 7, and see if they can maybe potentially get the 7th seed and avoid playing Boston again for the first round, or potentially being a 9-10 and now may not even make the playoffs in general. So we'll have to see, man. But before I go, guys, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, @BryceC_2K. Also, don't forget, if you watch this on YouTube, subscribe and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget, if you're listening through audio, leave a review, leave a rating. Appreciate all your love and support, guys. Let's hope for a better end to this season as we're entering the home stretch of Atlanta Hawks basketball 2023-2024 NBA season. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. See you next time.